Hi, I'm Logan T. Smith for Opinion Subject to Change, here to talk about today Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters. But first, this episode is not sponsored by Altoids, curiously strong mints. However, this flavor is creme de menthe, and it's curiously not strong at all. The opening credits of Godzilla are a montage of archival footage and documents from Monarch of Godzilla's previous appearance in the 50s. It's kind of an artsy opening and a nod to the original movie that was filmed at those times. This movie takes place sometime in the 2000s. In contrast to Kong Skull Island, you won't get a good look at Godzilla for a long time in this movie. To paraphrase Guillermo del Toro, Godzilla is a shrine to its monster. There is a lot of build-up and pageantry surrounding the reveal. Considering how good Godzilla looks, it's a bit of a shame we see so little of him. But it does make the moment of the reveal meaningful and impactful. After the opening credits, there's a fairly long and sad introduction. The human story is set up quite well, and the main conflict of the film is established in a way that's interesting and compelling. Unfortunately, the human story fizzles out into a fairly nonsensical and uninteresting drag. And it's a real shame because the most interesting characters have little to do, and the flow of the movie just doesn't work, partly because the characters just make decisions that I don't believe any person put in the position that they're in would actually make. I can see the motivations that they're trying to go for. I just don't think their reactions are true. The cinematography in this movie is artful at times, and usually from a human perspective. So some of my favorite shots in the movie come late, where they just, the way they've worked the foreground and background and everything together, it's a kind of a beautiful and really puts Godzilla in the context of our world in a way that I can relate to and understand as much as you can with a giant monster. Obviously, I know it's not real, but it looks realistic, and I can put myself in that place while I'm watching it. Unfortunately, this same perspective of being from humans, it often makes the view of the monsters obscured. Either you're from far away or you're looking through something, which is kind of artsy and nice from that perspective. But if you just want a nice, clear view of a monster battle, this is not a really good example of that. Now, my personal view, though, is that most of the time when you have superhero battles or monster battles where everything is clear and you can see it all, they actually tend to look pretty silly, just because they're not real. they're not realistic, and they're not human. And so I think that putting these battles in that context of through the window, behind the tree, those kind of things, make it so that it's much more relatable as a viewer who's never been able to fly and has never been a 1,000-foot tall monster. So these things, although you could criticize it because you don't get a good look at what's going on, at the same time, I think it makes it feel more realistic. There are some scary scenes in this movie, but the violence is relatively reserved, particularly if you compare Kong Skull Island. If you've seen that one, the violence is fairly over the top and gory a lot of the time, whereas Godzilla here is not very gory, particularly in relation to humans, and it's sort of, there's not as much violence for the sake of violence in it. It's hard for me to describe without giving any spoilers away, but in the context of everything, I think they've portrayed the message with as little violence as plausible. Coarse language in it is also mild and mostly surprised or scared exclamations. I haven't let my minute reviewers see this one, but it's got to be on the low end of the PG-13 rating. I found Godzilla reminiscent of the classic movies, with a very different identity, though. You wouldn't confuse this American movie with one of the Japanese entries in the franchise. I think, though, that this movie would be more palatable for most modern audiences than the Japanese movies, at least the ones I've seen. And I've mostly seen the classic ones from back in the 50s and 60s, though, so I'm not as familiar with the newer Japanese Godzilla movies. I give Godzilla a 6 out of 10. If you're curious about Godzilla or monster movies, I think you should watch this one. But know there are better monster movies and better Godzilla movies out there than this one. Godzilla King of the Monsters takes place a few years after the 2014 movie, and we meet a family that was broken by the tragedies of the first film. Madison lives with her mother, Emma, who works for Monarch, trying to find a way to influence the monsters. Madison's father has rejected Monarch. He used to work for them, not anymore. Godzilla hasn't been seen by the public since the events of the first movie. As you might imagine, things don't go too smoothly for our little family. What follows is a more compelling and interesting human story and more exciting monster action than the first movie. We catch glimpses of several monsters in this one, and they all look great. The battles are excellent and more diverse than in the first movie, and I mean no disrespect to the foundations of the Godzilla franchise, but this is how Godzilla was meant to look. Other than a few soft moments, the movie looks excellent throughout, but is often dark, which may hinder your experience if you watch in a bright room. This film deals with themes of our stewardship of the earth and the importance of protecting our environment. And I actually quite liked how they handled this, and it didn't leave a bitter taste like some more preachy movies can. There is more violence, more monster violence, more human violence than in the previous film, and a greater quantity of more aggressive, coarse language. I think that the filmmakers were trying to make King of the Monsters a more mature and serious film, and I think they added some of this language to bulk it up in that way, which I, of course, think was a mistake. Watching the two films close together really makes the language in King of the Monsters feel excessive. It's really not needed. To change tack here a little bit, over time, you can get used to the things you have. In the case of this movie review, you can get accustomed to your television or your projector and your audio system. And sometimes you can sort of forget what you've got. I watch a lot of reviews of home theater equipment, and it can really make me want more. I have what in the audio world would be considered a budget audio setup. And I just have it in my living room. I don't have a home theater. I don't even have, like, my surround speakers aren't the same distance away from the seating position, and I have stuff in the room that just shouldn't be there. Sometimes kids' toys get left in front of the speakers and things like that. And it can make me want more. It can make me want to change the room to try to make it better for the home theater and sacrifice being able to live in it the same way, or to buy better equipment because you get jealous of seeing the things that are out there that are great. But Godzilla King of the Monsters demonstrated to me that I don't need any of that. This was a moment for me that really made me thankful for what I have and made me realize that I don't need any more, because my equipment can do amazing things when it's paired with an amazing audio mix. Godzilla King of the Monsters put me at the feet of giants to feel and hear their battle surround me. it gave me one of my favorite watching movies at home moments. It turned my living room into a movie theater experience for me. And I have a 5.1 setup. It's not some amazing thing. But this audio mix, it just reminded me of what a great audio mix can do. Most movies don't have a mix like this. They just don't. This one is got to be one of the best. Now, I haven't watched every movie out there, but this one has a great audio mix. Godzilla, King of the Monsters is my favorite Godzilla movie. But it only gets 7 out of 10 due to shortfalls in humor and some story weaknesses. I would absolutely recommend King of the Monsters to any adult interested in the genre and would recommend it to many others. If you're curious why a movie like this that I obviously like a lot only got a 7, I have on my blog, I have my written out reviews, but I also have a kind of my review sheet that has the score breakdown and some jotted little notes about each movie that I review. It's at logantsmith.ca, and then you can click my little blog link, or I'll put a link in the description that will bring you directly to the blog. I hope you enjoy it if you go there, and you can kind of see what is important in the scoring and how that all breaks down. Thanks.